Osiris.
Under the scale, under the scale, under the scales. Under the scale, under the scale, under the scales.
Interpretation, reflection, misdirection. That's my job. It really is my job. I write words for Phish. I'm Tom Marshall, and this is Under the Scales.
Hello, I'd like to welcome Derek Gregory to Under the Scales. How are you, Derek?
Excellent. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing excellent. And Derek, as you know, the title of this episode is called Riding the Rail. And what does that mean to you in one sentence or less?
It would mean that you are up in the front row and on the rail, and and how dedicated you are to be up there, I guess, was the underlying thing.
Exactly. There's a group of audience members that ride the rail, and if you go to a lot of Phish shows, you kind of realize that a lot of them are the same ones every time.
Exactly.
You start to recognize guys. I remember recognizing a guy with a big pizza on his shirt, the pizza guy.
Yeah, that's Mark Levy, actually. So,
it's kind of funny. And then you, of course, you got a spot in front of Trey, many shows, possibly 3 years running now.
Mm-hmm.
I see you at that main spot. So it brings up a lot of questions, and I thought possibly my audience might have the same questions. Perhaps we could answer some of those about the people that do put a lot of effort into getting up on the front row for every show.
Sure.
But to get started, Derek, where are you right now?
I am in Fairfax, California, and that's in Marin County, about 10 miles north of San Francisco.
Oh, cool. So you, despite being a West Coaster, you kind of catch a lot of shows, even though Phish tends to be an East Coast band.
So I do find myself on the East Coast a lot,
Yep.
and obviously I love it when they're out here. Wherever the band takes me or takes us, I'll go.
Wherever they may wander.
Yeah.
And then you and I met, I want to say, before 2000, right?
Yeah, I believe it was December of '99 at Hampton Coliseum, right before Big Cypress.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right. And then you pointed out to me recently also that you had taken me to a string cheese show as well. And that was in New York City. When was that?
Exactly. That was October of 2001. So
Okay.
you and our good friend in common, Stephen Thomas, Tebow. That was at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and I was working for String Cheese at the time. So
Oh, yeah.
you've always been very kind to me in the Phish scene and whatever. So, I was trying to give back whatever I could at the time. So,
Well, that was really nice of you, and I really enjoyed meeting the guys. They're all really extremely nice people, and that was a great show too.
yeah, and they were definitely happy and surprised to meet you and that you were there too. So that was a good time.
That was cool. I think someone asked me to write lyrics for them, and that never happened. I'm not sure if that ever will, but if you guys are out there, I'll write some lyrics. Maybe, I don't know.
They probably need it. But yeah. So it's been a great long run, and I certainly consider you a great friend in this whole thing that we call life and the whole Phish thing. So
A companion on the ride that we call life. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. And
likewise, absolutely likewise. Well, you more than anyone else, as we mentioned already, at least lately, represents this group, the people that ride the rail, because for any show that I've seen in 2014, 2015, 2016, I think all of this year too, you had the front and center spot right in front of Trey. And
pretty much.
So I guess the question begs the question, how do you do it? You have to wait in line in the morning before the show, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And sometimes that line starts, the night before, depending. Like sometimes when the tour begins, people are just so pumped and They'll just go out and start waiting in line. And like you alluded to, we are for the most part all friends. And so that's kind of like our beginning of our reunion on the tour. And there's certainly people that I know for, all these years as well that aren't into that scene, but, I still see them. And that's, one of the great joys and beauties of the Phish show and experiences is all the people that you meet after all these years. And wherever I run into them in the arena, it's always great to see them. And
yeah, so you don't have to see them your friends aren't only the ones, is what you're saying, that are on the rail.
No, they think my OG friends think I'm insane. So
all right. Now you got to walk me through this because from a beginner's perspective, you must have been exaggerating. How long really do you wait in line to get on the front rail?
Wow, there really wasn't any usually it starts probably about 6 a.m, maybe probably about dawn.
Okay. Wow. So the rest of us are still in our hotel rooms or flying into the city or whatever. And you guys
still
are
up.
Yeah. Yeah. Are still, well, not me anymore at 52.
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking of getting up yet. So 6 o'clock in the morning, and how many people will you find out there typically?
It's a slow trickle, but probably about 6 or 7, maybe by 6 or 7 by 7, I would say. And there's really no rhyme or reason or a certain time that you can guarantee. But as soon as it starts getting light and there's a general admission section, and it all kind of varies. Like if you're talking about something like Dick's or something that has an entire floor that's general admission, that's obviously more tickets in the pool and more spots. Like this summer at the Man, for instance, really small pit, SPAC 2, and it was awesome. People weren't showing up till noon or 1 or 2, and that was amazing. That was really the first time in a long time that people were just not so, and I put it in air quotes, aggressive about it. But
I see. And then likewise, where were they the most aggressive, that you've seen on this tour?
Well, I skipped Dick's this year, and apparently from the feedback I've gotten from Dick's, people were, and I think this is insane, and I think it's rude to the band, and I'll definitely preface it by my opinion on this, but apparently people were leaving 3 songs from the end of the show to actually go back and get in line for the next day, and I just don't understand it at all. And honestly, if that's the state of affairs for how it's going to go, I just can't compete on that. And it's not a competition, but I just refuse to do that. I'm there to see the band. This is the band I love. I've been seeing them since 92. I'm, 450 deep, and
right. There's some craziness. I don't know where you might draw the line, because you said the very first show of the tour, people were there really early as well.
Let's see, they started in Minneapolis this year, and I showed up probably around 6 o'clock, and there was probably a couple of other people there, but
I think it was Bend last tour that you were talking about, where it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, Ben last year, people got in line at 3 p.m. the day before the show. And then the thing that's screwy about that is it just starts a domino effect, and because people start getting jonesed out, and
right.
then it seeds a line, basically.
I see.
And,
it can't get any better if people start seeing you guys in line that early. Then someone's going to try to beat you, right?
Yeah, or just I guess it's time to get in line, because people go and suss it out. Usually what you do is the night before, especially if it's a venue you haven't been to, you go and you suss it out, and you just see, you see where you figure, the line's going to start. And so you just kind of have a lay of the land a little bit. So when you show up at 6 a.m, you kind of have the floor plan, I guess, under your belt a little bit. So now if I'm going to go there and say there's already maybe 10 people in line,
am I already past the optimal spot if I want a front spot, or am I going to get a pretty good spot?
No, I think you're going to get a pretty good spot because not everybody's gunning for Trey.
I see.
Yeah, there's, you definitely have like a mic contingency and a page side, rage side, obviously. And there's some people that I know that wait in line that aren't even interested in being in the rail, but they want to be in that Trey zone. They like second row, third row, but they want to be like in that like Trey radius or whatever.
I see. Okay. And then do you guys have rules, or does the Phish security help you with rules with regard to allowing maybe one person to save space for another, or how does that work?
Well, that is pretty much all self-governed with the people that are down there. I guess in about summer of 2014, the late Bill, who passed away a couple of months ago, he was very good at bringing the line in single file and bringing it all the way down to the pit or wherever it may be, and keeping it very orderly, because at times before that it was like you could be the first person, second person in line, but literally the gates would open and it would be like a free for all. And in a sense, it was a little dangerous.
That's the running of the bulls or whatever, running of the tarps, as you see that Red Rocks video.
I think Dick's in 2012. Like, I just remember this guy getting his leg caught on one of the benches coming down onto the field, and he literally probably did like 3 or 4 cartwheels like down, and I remember at that point I was like, man, this is dangerous and probably just a liability, for the venue or whatever, so it was and I'm not a runner either, so you had people like stretching and like doing all this stuff, like they're about ready to run like a 10K or something, so
that's incredible.
So it has chilled out, but the beginning of the tour seems to be the most crunch, where people are really excited, and especially because they don't tour in the spring, so it'd be like New Year's, or I guess this past year Mexico,
right,
in the last show. So you just get people geeked and ready to see Phish. And,
right. Well, let's talk a little bit a bit more about the self-policing aspect. So I like hearing what you said about Phish security, and Bill, rest in peace, Bill, was able to help you guys and kind of bring you guys in an orderly fashion. That sounds really smart. Now, I guess that's sort of bringing you into the venue, but when you guys are outside the venue in line and stuff, I imagine there's disputes that need to be settled, like people trying to hold space for 5 people or whatever. How does that work?
Well, I mean, that kind of, I don't want to say not riff-raff, but that type of, that might happen occasionally, but most of the people, as you had noted before, do know each other and stuff. And basically what the kind of unspoken rule is, or spoken unspoken rule, because it's not written anywhere, is that you basically can do like a +1, and that +1 would be extended to like a significant other, or maybe your tour partner or whatever. And just so, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take the 6 to 12, the 6 to noon shift. And then like my buddy or whatever would be sleeping in the room. He'd come down at noon, maybe bring a breakfast sandwich or whatever. And then I would go till, 5 hours and go to sleep and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's crazy stuff too, which, I don't agree. And it ticks a lot of people off. People actually get these things called task rabbits.
Oh, right. And, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, man.
So let's
crazy.
Let's fill the audience in. So a task rabbit is someone that you can, I guess, order online to do various things, like whether it's wash your car or whatever. In this case, they task them to stand in line, and they're not Phish,
in line.
They're not Phish fans. They're just paid to stand there.
Yeah, and so and that's Not that the whole line thing had disenchanted me so much to not go to Dick's. I had some other things going on that didn't allow. But last year at Dick's, people were actually putting these task rabbits in line before we would go in for that day's show. So they would be like, look, that's my task wrap. This guy's already in
Oh my
line
God.
for me for the next show.
I hate that.
Before we'd even went into the show that we were waiting for. I mean, so there's definitely some insanity going on. And
that's when it's gone a little too crazy, because I mean, in reality, the way common sense would say that if you're in line, you're the one that's going to be there. It's not like you shouldn't really be able to have a substitute. But, theoretically what they're saying is, well, that guy is my proxy. He's in line. And so you can't argue with that. It's bizarre. That's bizarre.
It is. I mean, I hate to say it's like a sad state of affairs, but it really has. And there's only a few people that do that. I'm not going to call out any names or anything like that, but and it didn't happen this summer because there was like a little bit of a revolt,
Okay.
and people weren't going to stand for it. And honestly, I would go at this point. I would just push those people right out of line and go right in front of them, because I'm not playing that game. But
are you the most experienced there? Do you have like some seniority, kind of, like for settling disputes?
I mean, a lot of people do kind of come to me to settle some disputes. I mean, for the most part, consistently, like I probably the person that is the oldest and has been.
Do you have the coolest head and keep things non-violent or non-confrontational?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen violence erupt, but people's emotions do run high and at times, but yeah, I mean, and hey, man, sometimes I have a short fuse or just low tolerance for just shenanigans or whatever. But for the most part, everything works out. Everything's harmonious, and in the end, everybody really gets to where they want to go. So
I got it. So transfer me now, again, from the standpoint of a beginner. You've waited in line, the door's open, the gates are open, you're now in the venue, and I gather you've gotten up there and you've sort of staked out your spot. Now you have a little time to chill, before the band comes out. Are you becoming friends with the security that's on the other side of that rail? And do they kind of help keep your spot and police, or does that not really happen?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that I could say that they help keep your spot, but it is always good to just kind of make friendly with the guys that stand there between the rail and the stage because, well, first of all, they're generally nice people, and you will get the spun rando that will come down, maybe at separate because, you have to use the restroom, or maybe go get some water or, I don't know, maybe go get a shirt from merch or whatever you do, so, and then you'll come back. And most of the time the people down there, like the fans and my friends, they'll like lay down or spread out just so nobody, but sometimes that doesn't happen. You'll get this guy, well, I have a general admission ticket and this allows me to go anywhere I want to. And, but so they don't, and they'll try to pull that game and that kind of mentality. But if you've made friendly with the security guards and they know like kind of who was there and, the dedication that you've put out to wait to be there, they'll usually take care of it. Before it escalates into, I mean, sometimes the security guards will just like literally jump over the rail and like, take somebody out, like, just like escort somebody to a different area. So,
right. Well, that's okay. Well, that's sort of, I've been not trying to focus on the negative side of things, but I always see like an opportunity when there's like a society or almost you might call it a secret society for stuff to go wrong, or at least for interactions with that society and the rest of us to go wrong. And in fact, they brand, in some cases I've seen you guys branded as the front row mafia and stuff like that. And that's sort of a negative moniker, but for the most part of everyone that I know, and you obviously included, but everyone who, puts in the effort, to me, is actually even more of a fan and give back to the community a lot. You, for example, you're a photographer.
Hello, listeners. This is Tom with a brief mid-podcast message to remind you that I'm always looking for Phish-related stories and topics, and I'm always looking for new subjects and new people to interview. If you feel like you might be able to contribute to this podcast, go to underthescales.com and click the Tell Your Story button. I read every legitimate submission, so don't hesitate. Follow our Twitter to stay up to date at Under the Scales. Now back to the show.
Other people that I know that are willing to put in that time, it's simply just to get close to the band and to get away from distractions so that you can enjoy yourself at a Phish show.
Yeah, and when you say close to the band, just meaning like closer physically to the band as they're playing. And
yes.
And yeah, I mean, I like hearing the sound coming off the stage and the just not so much distraction, because the people down there in that pocket that we call it are quiet, and they don't sit and chat and they're there to see Phish, and they're there to take it all in, and it's kind of like almost like a greater organism at a certain point, because everybody's just like kind of dialed into the to the moment, and
I'm glad you said that, because that sort of reminds me of something that I definitely have seen, and at sometimes I think it's going both directions. I mean, it definitely is going both directions, but you guys are totally like spinning or dancing during incredible moments from the band. But I also think you guys give back energy now and then. Do you ever see the band kind of feeding off of you?
Yeah, I mean, I do, and it's like it's kind of one of those chicken or the egg type things, like which comes first. But there is like a symbiotic relationship, and I'm sure with the whole arena too. I mean, because the band has to feel it, but I guess they can only really see so far out there. And I mean, we're down there because we love Phish, and not that anybody doesn't love Phish as much because they're in some other spot, but that's how we enjoy the Phish show. In a sense, it's just almost like a drug in a way.
I agree. I mean, definitely not only is the band looking at you probably first in the audience, but also the audience is kind of looking at you and feeding from your guys' enjoyment as well. If the front row people are really going nuts, maybe something's going on that we should pay attention to. And I'm including myself in the group that, I go to a Phish show to see Phish, of course, 90%, but there's a social element too. And every now and then, all of a sudden the audience will be dialed in, and then sometimes they get a little more dialed out. But I think you guys are oblivious almost to that. You guys are 100% dialed in.
Well, yeah, I mean, we try to, I guess, keep it real down there, but, this summer, or just, sometimes there'll be a song thrown in there in the second set. I don't know what the ballad slot. Sometimes it works really good, and sometimes it takes the wind out of the set for me.
Are you specifically talking about Backwards Down the Number Line?
No, actually, like I would like Backwards Down the Number Line compared to some of the I don't want to get in and step on anybody's toes, but I will tell you they're not your songs, Tom.
I was waiting to hear, I don't know.
I would be happy to have a number line compared to some of the, but I'm not a critic. I'm not a hater. I don't go on the PT or I don't go on to PT at all. I mean, honestly, I think if I was on there, I probably wouldn't even like Phish. There's a lot of negativity. I mean, I try to keep it real. I try to keep it positive. Phish is my favorite band. Obviously, I'm dedicated. It's a huge experience in my life. And even before I was going up to the front, I was a big taper back then, as you know, in like 1.0, and just traveled all around the world seeing Phish, Japan, Europe twice, for the 97 tour, 98 tour.
You saw them in Japan both times?
Fuji Rock.
Oh, okay.
I didn't go the second time. I was actually living out of the country at the time. I just couldn't put it together. So
too bad they didn't go to whatever country you were in at the time.
Yeah, actually, I was living down in Playa del Carmen, so they followed me somehow down there.
So I do want to get into how you got into the band and that kind of thing, and also hear a little bit about taping. But one more upfront question. So just if I think I've seen, like, do you ever swap out spots? In other words, are you up front the whole show, or do you ever give your spot to someone else?
I definitely will, and other people will as well. Like swap out for a song or two.
Okay.
With some other people too, just to give them, and like I said, down there in the quote unquote pocket, like we really do like kind of know everybody, and
I see. So someone maybe you'll be like in the third or fourth row, and you'll say, "Come on up, check out what it's like on the rail for a song or something."
Yeah, exactly. And those people, for the most part, have been on the rail too, but they just, whatever. Like sometimes it'll be like the weekday at the Man, and they have to work. They can't get, and they're like, from New York City or something, and they can't, get there in time to put the time in to go. And yeah, so we try to be fair and, give out. So yeah, I don't know. Somebody told me about the front row mafia thing. I don't know. Like, honestly, Tom, like I'm kind of just like a lone wolf, I just, I do it because I love Phish.
So you're not the Don of the mafia.
No.
Okay.
and I don't know their I don't know who they're particularly referring to. I mean, I've never had a tarp in my life. I've never stood on a tarp. There's really not tarps up that close.
I haven't heard that the front row people are tarpers too. I don't.
No.
I didn't hear that about them.
Yeah, but you get to about the third row, and then you'll start getting the tarps, and and honestly, I'm kind of like a horse with blinders on. Like whatever happens behind me, like, and that's kind of like the beauty of being up there. It's like it doesn't really matter, like,
right,
in the sense it doesn't distract me from what I come to the Phish show to do or to experience. So
totally get it. So, well, thanks for at least setting me straight on what happens up there and how people get up there. And just a personal question: how do you follow Phish and see so many shows, that kind of thing? Are you your own boss?
Yeah, pretty much. I am my own boss, and I luckily have a support unit back here in California because I have two dogs that obviously I super love and some responsibilities. So I have a good team that will allow me to break off and go and do this stuff. So if it wasn't for them, and I would say my buddy Bodie Lane, I'll give a shout out to him. He he keeps it real back here at home for me, so I can go out and enjoy.
Nice.
Myself.
Are you like a startup guy like everyone else in San Francisco?
Kind of. I'm a consultant in the medical cannabis industry, so I can just run my own hours, and it's an exciting time for that, and we'll see. We got a ballot initiative coming up, so we'll
that's
see how
amazing.
it goes.
That's really, really good stuff. So maybe I'll get back to you someday, Derek, on that stuff, because definitely the marijuana industry is something that I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
How interesting, and it's going through so many changes right in its early stages here. But where you mentioned taping and Europe and stuff, so your first shows were over there, or just your first?
No. My first show was 5/3/92 at Michigan State University Student Ballroom in '92, and prior to that, so I would be seeing a lot of Grateful Dead shows, and I heard Phish on. They would put filler on analog tapes for, people that, remember what analog tapes were. And so, you'd have a first set Grateful Dead show. There'd be like 45 minutes or, hour long. So there'd be filler on the B side or whatever. And people used to put Phish in there. And that's how I first kind of heard Phish. And I got brought to a show, and a couple of days later to this place called St. Andrews in Detroit, and that I think was on 5/6/92, and just kind of got it, and they used to just clobber the Midwest with shows. So it was like so easy to see Phish, like anywhere from, Michigan to Chicago to Ohio. I mean, you could really rack up a lot of Phish shows.
And you were you taping back then?
Yeah, I started taping in like 94.
Okay.
And that evolved into, I was just a patcher, and then ultimately I got my like a setup and a really nice setup, and then I kind of became, and that's how my introduction into the band, and probably how we indirectly even met, because I started getting access just from my good tapes and stuff like that, and that wasn't anything I set out to do or anything like that. It was just I was producing these really excellent quality tapes that have still held the test of time, because back then there wasn't any live Phish. There wasn't, any way to listen to a show if there wasn't people there taping it.
Right.
So,
and I mentioned that I was going to interview you to a couple of my, serious taping buddies and old school people. And they all, when they heard your name, they associated you with a particular show in Prague, I believe. What was that one?
Yeah. I think that's 5/6/98, which is a live release too. But that and the Christiania shows that were prior to the Prague shows there in Europe were probably my most famous tapes. I really clobbered those shows. It's just really fond memories, and especially things like Europe, which is
I loved it.
Was a really special time, an intimate way to see the band, and
I loved it.
Yeah, camaraderie's started, and you're like going from on city to city on trains, and exploring different places.
Yeah, so I talked to you recently, Derek. I'm trying to remember when it was, maybe a month ago, and at the time you were compiling some photos and doing some cool stuff, and I looked at some of them and they're fantastic. What's going on with your photos these days?
So I do take photos, and then some of them got stolen this summer from some publications because I wasn't watermarking, and I'm not like a super big watermarker because I think it just kind of ruins the aesthetic of the photo, but then I guess I do see the merit of it, and I'm not looking to have any financial gain from it or anything. It's just, it kind of stems from my taping. It was just like a posterity thing, and I capture these moments that otherwise wouldn't be captured, and so I like to share that. So now I kind of took down my Instagram account, and now I've started a new one, and going through and watermarking my photos.
I'm kind of sad to hear that. That's sort of like you said, with taping, that a lot of work goes into it, and people are willing to give that away for free. A lot of work goes into photography, and it sounds like you were willing to give that away for free too. But it's other publications who possibly are making money from it that they're the ones that are stealing the photos from you.
Yeah, that's what happened, and it was a financial thing. I mean, I don't care if somebody takes a photo and they want to make it a backdrop of their phone or their computer or whatever, but it really kind of crossed the line with me when I saw my photos ending up on an unnamed publication.
Unnamed meaning you're not going to name it.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to name it because actually a lot of good things happened from it.
Okay.
I was angry at the time, but it's just when the good things have happened from it. But But yeah, they were, I mean, everything's kind of quantified by clicks on the internet when you have stuff like that. So
yes.
it was, garnering clicks, and, they weren't giving me, and I'm not looking for recognition, because I don't know, that's just not my thing. But,
right. But just outright theft is not cool.
Yeah, and especially for, that's something that's supposed to be a journalist or publication, you should just know better.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
You can search anything on Google Images and figure out where that stuff came from, in 0.04 of a second. So, there's really no excuse, but it's all good. And so, so I started a new Instagram account that I'm slowly building up, and, because I do just like sharing my photos with the fans, and that's what I do it for.
Why don't you tell us your Instagram account, maybe?
So, well, now it's Derek Gregory Photo. So
okay.
that's my new one that I started up, and I kind of did Derek Gregory Photography on Facebook, but I'm not super Facebook guy. So, and I do other photos that aren't concert related too. I'm super into like night photography and long exposure and stuff. So
I'll go check Derek Gregory Photos out on Instagram. That sounds really cool.
Or just photo, just singular. Derek Gregory Photo.
Okay.
Instagram or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And then I'm also Tweet Prize on Twitter too. So that's cool. Those are my little handles out there in the virtual world. And
absolutely. Well, that's cool. One more sort of selfish question before I let you go,
sure.
Derek. Do you have any favorite songs or lyrics that you could share with us?
Colonel Forbin's Ascent, probably like my favorite song, and I know that's a hard song to catch, but just like, I warn you that all knowledge seeming innocent and pure becomes a deadly weapon in the hands of avarice and greed.
It's beautiful.
So I like that, but I mean, there's so many, and when one of your new ones, I think, which is one of the most brilliant new batch of songs, I think, is No Man in No Man's Land. That really resonates with me. And so it's like almost hard to pick apart a lyric sometimes now, because like the whole song really is a gem. So
thank you very much. Yeah, no, I love that. And that just came out on the new album, and I'm really proud of that one.
Yeah, it's a great song for sure. And so and then like Bug is, I have a lot of favorite, and Shafty, which is short and sweet, but gets to the point, great lyrics, or whatever. It was Oblivious Fool at one point.
Yeah, exactly. We're all in hell and we don't even know it.
Yeah, you can be there and not even know. So
that's the terrible thing about it. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek, so much for coming on Under the Scales and enlightening us on the ins and outs of the front row riding the rail crew.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to discourage anybody that would want to come and try it. You come and you put your time in, and you're respected like anybody else. So like, it's not a front row mafia. We're very friendly and accommodating. So please, anybody that's listening to this, if you want to come and experience that experience, don't be intimidated.
Don't be shy. Don't be intimidated.
Don't be shy.
Come say hi.
Come out. And I just wanted to quickly just give a shout out to a couple of friends that, without them, I had mentioned my buddy Bodie Lane, my buddy Wolf, my friend River, who you met at Magnaball. And
hi River.
Yeah, and my other friend Sarah, because honestly, it's without people, without other people, like teamwork makes the dream work, I guess you could say, as cliche as that is. So
I like it. I like it. Perfect way to end, and to invite everyone else to ride the rail with you there, Derek. That's very nice of you, and thanks again, and hopefully we talk soon.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you the next time.
Yeah, man. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Under the Scales, the podcast about Phish fans, their culture, and secrets, if we're lucky. Quick thank you to my producer, Mark Dowd, and my sister podcast, HF Pod. Some of the music you hear in my show is, of course, Phish, but also it's often my old band Amphibian with an F. using songs Anthony cries on and I wrote for our album, Skip the Goodbyes. Find him at njrecordingstudio.com. I'll interview you if you want as well. Go to underthescales.com and click the Tell Your Story button. If you're at all serious, your submission will definitely get to me. For other matters, write to me at tom@underthescales.com and follow our Twitter here at Under the Scales. See you next week.